North Atlantic, spring 1943. An endless gray sea churns under rolling clouds as a pack of German U-boats, king of the waves for 3 years, slowly rises to periscope depth. Radio silence, tension, and confidence fill each steel tube. Convoy ONS-5 looms somewhere ahead. Suddenly, the U-boat's hydrophone operator snaps his head up. Faint engines, but no merchant ship screws. Instead, above and astern, a persistent ping, the staccato note of active sonar, cuts through the water, growing louder. Before the U-boat captain can evade, depth charges rain down, detonating with a fury no submarine veteran had ever survived. In moments, one of Germany's best crews meets something new and terrifying. Ahead throwing Hedgehog mortars, guided by pinpoint sonar, turning the hunter into hunted, and sending shockwaves down every naval corridor from Bremen to Portsmouth. An Allied officer radios, "The Hedgehog's awake tonight. They'll never guess what's coming." At the war's outset, U-boats ruled the Atlantic. Operating in wolf packs, they stalked and annihilated Allied merchant convoys, sometimes sinking 30 or more ships in a single operation. Churchill would later write, "Allied losses soared. In 1942 alone, over 1,000 ships were sunk, cutting off Britain's lifeline to American arms, food, and fuel." Traditional countermeasures, depth charges, and passive sonar were only intermittently effective. Sonar could hear a submarine but lost contact seconds before the ship passed overhead to drop explosives blindly. Most U-boats simply slipped away under the noise and turbulence. Convoy escorts sometimes used up entire arsenals on one hunt, with little to no effect. Mathematician Patrick Blackett, leading Royal Navy research, found brutally stark numbers. Only 1 in 20 depth charge attacks succeeded in destroying a submarine. The scale of disaster demanded an innovation that could turn sonar contact into a kill, without losing the target or wasting precious time. Behind the arm of the Royal Navy's scientific establishment stood 2 unheralded pioneers, Captain PMS Blackett and Lieutenant Commander Charles Goodeve. Desperate to innovate, Goodeve gathered a team of scientists, chemists, engineers, mathematicians from across Britain. Their mission, defeat the U-boat or Britain starves. Late-night sessions in London's secret labs spawned new concepts, forward-throwing depth bombs, pattern mortars, acoustic fuses. Their focus settled on the Hedgehog, a spiked, multi-barreled launcher firing 24 contact-fused bombs ahead of a destroyer, saturating any point traced by sonar. It was risky. The new weapon would only detonate if it struck a metal hull. No guaranteed explosions, no huge geysers, but if successful, it would change sub-warfare forever. The breakthrough, the revelation. The first Hedgehog was mounted on Royal Navy HMS Westcott in late 1942. In a freezing January sea test, sonar fixated on a submerged U-boat. The destroyer's bow pulsed with the mechanical click of the new mortar. Suddenly, dozens of projectiles arced out, spattered water like hail. Seconds later, 4 blasts echoed from below. They surfaced oil slick and debris. Confirmation, the U-boat destroyed. No wasted depth charges, no wild patterns, just science, precision, and silence. Allied captains wrote, "Submarines can no longer hide beneath the surface. Now the ocean itself turns against them." News spread quickly, even as censorship kept it secret from public ears. U-boat crews who survived an attack described the terror of silent, accurate bombs, which killed without warning or escape. A German survivor recounted, "We heard it, metal on water. We prayed for depth charges, but then there was nothing except a shattering blow." Commanders in the Kriegsmarine demanded answers. How were Allied ships so accurate? Where did these new underwater barrages come from? New tactics were tested, but the Hedgehog could drop patterns perfectly matched to a sub's last known fix, long before evasive maneuvers could save the hunted. It is May 1943. North Atlantic winds churn icy spume over the decks of an Allied destroyer. The men gather around a strange new array on the forecastle. 24 squat, sharp-nosed projectiles bristling skyward in a steel grid. This is the Hedgehog, barely a year from the drawing board, now poised to rewrite the rules of submarine warfare. British engineers had set the challenge: build a weapon that could attack a submarine faster, farther, and more accurately than any depth charge before. The answer fired not from the stern, but ahead of the ship. 24 spigot mortars, each 46 inches long, 65 pounds, filled with 35 pounds of high-explosive torpex, launched in a precise pattern nearly 275 yards forward. each warhead detonated only upon direct contact, a shattering, catastrophic blow for any U-boat caught beneath. Unlike older depth charges, which required wild guessing at depth and blanketed huge areas with thunderous, imprecise explosions, the Hedgehog let Allied ships keep sonar contact to the last second. Crews maintained a ping on the target, then fired the Hedgehog with uncanny accuracy, projectiles fanning out over a 95 by 168-foot oval. A single hit on steel would detonate instantly. A miss left the sea undisturbed, sonar unclouded, and the hunt ongoing. A destroyer captain recalls that first operational strike. We heard the sonar echo, called out the bearings, and let fly. Everything above, silent for a count, then 4 explosions, oil on the surface, and cheers from every watch. Statistically, the result was stunning. British experience with depth charges showed over 60 attacks were needed per kill. The Hedgehog, in contrast, delivered 47 kills with just 268 salvos, a ratio nearly 10 times higher than previous weapons. For U-boat crews, the new terror came without warning. One German survivor, "You prayed for the dull rhythm of old depth charges, easy to predict, easy to evade with a sharp dive. With Hedgehog there was only the sonar, the soft whine, then a jolt stronger than thunder. Some boats simply vanished. No time to dive, no time to fight." As Hedgehogs spread from destroyers and corvettes to modified merchant escorts, so too did their psychological effect. Veterans reported that crews, once fearless in approaching convoys, now hesitated. They attack from the front, and with machines that need only one shell to end you. Allied tacticians rejoiced. Hedgehog attacks could be repeated in seconds. No need to evade concussion or wait for water to still before using sonar. If the bombs missed, the ship could instantly reacquire and strike again, a relentless new tempo in the undersea duel. Efforts to counter the Hedgehog failed as fast as they were tried. U-boats set decoys, changed tactics, deployed noisemakers, but against accurate sonar and a cloud of fast-sinking contact-fused mortars, nothing truly worked. A German commander confessed after the war, "Our time as hunters was over. The ocean was no longer ours." By 1944, the Hedgehog, joined by even deadlier successors, like the 3-barreled squid and rocket-based mousetrap, was standard issue throughout Allied fleets. On the battle charts, U-boat losses soared. The grisly year of 1943 saw 237 U-boats destroyed, many by weapons their crews had never seen, attacked from a distance, lost in seconds beneath the cold Atlantic swells. And all the while, the convoy routes were reopening, food and material flowed to starving Britain, and the tides of victory began to shift. By mid-1944, the Hedgehog was transforming anti-submarine tactics on both sides of the Atlantic. Deep in the war room aboard HMS Starling, an officer runs his finger over the attack chart, 24 dots, each representing a mortar round, fanned in an oval that swallows the U-boat's last known position. He recalls the tension as the sonar ping locked on. We had a live contact. The whole crew tensed, seconds counted. The Hedgehog must be aligned, trigger set, sonar held, and then, in just 2 seconds, every shell launched. No crash of thunder if you missed, just silence, and right back onto the hunt. Each Hedgehog bomb was 46 inches long, 7.2 inches in diameter, filled with 35 pounds of Torpex, one of the most powerful explosives of its day. Unlike depth charges, which could blind sonar with their concussion, the Hedgehog let Allied ships attack and immediately reacquire. Its projectiles hit at over 20 feet per second, reaching a U-boat nearly 200 feet down in under 10 seconds. Crews learned to trust the statistics. Old methods needed over 50 depth charges per successful kill. Now with the Hedgehog, it was 1 in 5. Captains who once had to explain every empty Hedgehog pattern were now being ordered to attack every contact. The new safe bet was aggression. This relentless pace pushed the U-boat fleet to the edge. The German Kriegsmarine rushed to adapt. Crews changed depth and direction, deployed bold decoy canisters, and started using the G7E TAV Falke, the world's first acoustic torpedo, to hit back at pursuing destroyers. But the terrifying silence of the Hedgehog was hard to counter. Decoys fooled passive sonar, but meant little against an enemy already locked on and firing with precision. The threat affected every submariner's nerves. A U-boat captain's diary reads, "We no longer welcome darkness or cloud. The danger now comes with science, and with waiting, nothing like the old charges." Now, if sonar holds us, it means death. Escorts refined their tactics, now working in coordinated groups. The best teams made a science of creeping attack, one ship holding sonar fix, another launching the barrage, ships fanning out to box in the stricken sub. On lucky days, crew recall salvaging survivors, shell-shocked men whose only warning was a suddenly shattered hull. British laboratories pushed forward, improving the Hedgehog's reliability against the pounding North Atlantic storms. Later marks added gyroscopes, spring dampers, and insulated wiring to guard against freezing spray. Some U-boat crews noticed the new threat most in what was left behind. Where a depth charge left shaken gears and battered hulls, the Hedgehog left gaping holes and no time to react. Allied sailors respected the psychological toll. Hedgehog's silent pattern attacks left no doubt. If there was an explosion, it meant a hit. If not, the sonar continued, relentless as ever. As the Allies advanced, the next wave of innovation followed. Squid, another forward-firing mortar, but with greater range and depth, joined the arsenal, supported by Mousetrap, an American rocket version designed for smaller ships. By 1945, the new reality at sea was this. To be hunted by Hedgehog was to be outgunned, outpaced, and finally, outguessed. Naval warfare changed forever. Victory now went to those who mastered technology, teamwork, and the invisible power of sound. By the war's end, the Hedgehog had changed everything beneath the waves. In total, hundreds of U-boats and dozens of Japanese submarines fell to its contact-fused projectiles, sometimes with a single hit, almost always with terrifying speed. With each convoy that crossed the Atlantic, hope returned to war-torn Europe. British, American, Free French, Polish, Canadian, even Soviet ships mounted Hedgehogs. Allied morale soared as the hunter became the hunted. On the destroyer USS England, a record was set. 6 Japanese submarines destroyed in just 12 days. Every kill confirmed by the sudden, unmistakable crash of Hedgehog bombs. The Germans, recognizing defeat, rushed out new acoustic torpedoes, attempting to turn the tide with Falk, a weapon designed to neutralize the very ships that hunted them. But the Allies adapted too. British engineers evolved the Hedgehog into the Squid and then the Limbo, launching ever heavier charges with even greater precision, trading science for safety, invention for survival. The Hedgehog also saw use ashore. In June 1944, British Hedgerow, landing craft equipped with Hedgehog batteries, breached Normandy's beach defenses, firing salvos to clear mines and barbed wire for the D-Day landings. In Australia, the system was even mounted on Matilda tanks for bunker-busting experiments. After the war, the Hedgehog remained in service in Allied navies worldwide. Its principles echoed in the rocket-powered Mousetrap, the American Mark 108 weapon Alpha, and in Russia, legacy systems carrying the design and fear far into the Cold War. But beyond steel and statistics, the legacy of Hedgehog was written in silent sacrifice. For every submarine lost, there were letters home. For every survivor, memories of terror beneath the waves. Listening for that telltale ping, praying for silence, and knowing that now, the advantage belonged not to darkness, but to the determined mind of the scientist and sailor working in unison. In the years that followed, sonar, guided torpedoes, and long-range patrol aircraft would push submarine warfare into a new era. But the lesson of the Hedgehog was never forgotten. That innovation, stress-tested in the furnace of war, could shift the shape of history almost overnight. Today, museum decks echo with the stories of crews who trusted or feared the Hedgehog. Its steel grid a monument to a time when victory did not go to the biggest ship, but to the sharpest mind. The message is clear. In the deep, in the unknown, even the most silent hunter can be caught, if the tools are brave, and the minds behind them braver still.